Well, hello, and welcome to the Terri Cole Show. I'm your host, Terri Cole, and I am so excited that you are here with me today. Did you guys miss me? I took off for a couple of weeks because it is Boundary Bootcamp season. So I've been doing lots of lives and free workshops and just spreading the healthy boundary, effective communication love because it is my massive obsession. And today, because so many of you asked me about this obsession, how did it start? Why am I obsessed with boundaries and effective communication? I decided to tell you the whole sordid story and call it Supermodels, Cancer, and Me, how I became a boundary boss and how you can too. Does that sound good? All right, so if you're new to this show, which you're probably not, but let's say you are, and you don't even know me, I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the founder of Boundary Bootcamp and Real Love Revolution. What I do is I teach women all over the world how to get legitimately empowered in their lives through the use of healthy boundaries and effective communication. So it's really boundary literacy. This is what I am teaching. And if you don't know if you have good boundaries or not, or you have not been in my world for a while, I'll ask you a couple of questions and you'll get an idea for yourself. Do you ever say yes when you really want to say no? Or do you struggle with speaking up about your preferences or your desires or even your deal breakers? Is it difficult for you to speak up about things? Do you find yourself super exhausted from overgiving and overfunctioning in your relationships? Really think about the way you are. If you're upset about something, can you tell the person you're upset? Or are you withdrawn in anger? Or do you use, indirect communication instead of words? Because really, we can only act things out or talk things out. So if you use indirect communication, then you might slam a door or roll your eyes back in your head. Or what about a heavy sigh? Anybody? When you're annoyed, but you don't want to say that you're annoyed. Or you may try to draw boundaries. You may try to say something, but because you're not expert at it or you feel weird about it, then you immediately have the desire to take it back. Anybody? It's like boundary anxiety or a boundary hangover, basically. So you do the thing, and then 5 hours later, you want to be like, I didn't mean it. I'm only kidding. You can do what you want. So in my course and all the things that I teach about it, we always have a 24 or 48-hour rule where you can't take back any boundaries that you drew if you know you really need them for 48 hours. Because when you start to really get expert at this, you realize that feeling, that fear, that anxiety, that is going to go away. You're just doing something new. And so there's a place where the old stuff doesn't work, right? The passive aggressive stuff, once you know enough, doesn't work anymore. And maybe you haven't mastered the new stuff. So you sort of end up in the in-between. But it is exhausting. And really the worst of all is that no one ever actually knows you, right? So many of the women in my crew get it all done. They are so high functioning, it's insane, but they're undoing themselves in the process. I've heard from so many clients and students, and honestly, years ago, I secretly thought this myself, and maybe you are right now. Is this how I'm supposed to feel? Is this really all there is? And I gotta say, hell no. Trust me when I tell you there is so much more good stuff for you to feel. But you really need some boundary intelligence to get it. And as women, we're just not taught to master this vital skill set. We're really not. And I don't know about you, but nobody taught me how to express my preferences or my desires or my limits. And in fact, most of us were taught to believe that having boundaries, if you really had good boundaries, that meant you were selfish, confrontational, mean, bitchy, a drama queen, demanding. I mean, I could go on. I won't, but you get the point, right? How many of you, raise your hand, who was brought up as a good girl? My hand is raised. You can't see me because it's a podcast, but my hand is raised. And the real key is that we were taught to be nice. So it was like the holy grail of being female was all about being nice. It was like this aspirational virtue, supposedly, that's what we should be above all other things. But this stuff is such bullshit. These are myths and misinformation about boundaries, and it's so damaging. Because in my experience, in my 22 years as a licensed psychotherapist in the trenches with my female clients, boundaries are really not the block, but the bridge to everything that you're longing for in your life right now. So my struggle with boundaries was probably no different than yours. I mean, I grew up in a family, middle-class family, where I was taught to be nice. My role in the family was the hero child. So that meant, you know what that means, right? You're doing a lot for everyone. You're the one who is kind of saving the day. And, you know, that isn't free, by the way. There's a lot of bandwidth cost for being the hero child. But it also means that you're always focusing on other people. You're always focusing on, what does the room need? What do my sisters need? What do my parents need? How can I avoid or diffuse conflict? And that was a full-time job and super exhausting. And so I fell into like the perfect career. So by the time I was in my early 30s, I was running a New York talent agency, negotiating contracts for supermodels and celebrities. So like the Pantene deals and sometimes movie deals. So keep in mind, I was already a boundary disaster when I got there because of my upbringing. And then being in that totally toxic environment just amped it up so much. It made it so much worse because now it was my actual job to spend my time making sure that all of these entitled people had everything they wanted at any given time, even though I was negotiating contracts. But if I had a fancy client or a celebrity who was in Europe and I was in New York and they needed to talk to me and it was 3 a.m, I couldn't just like not pick up my phone. You know what I mean? So what I was learning all day, every day, was basically how to abandon myself all day long and just sublimate any need that I had. It was not about that. My need was to keep it going. My need was to get the next deal. My need was to make sure everyone was happy, pretty much never stopping to think how I felt about it. And I was going at such a breakneck pace, so much travel, not healthy eating. I knew that in some way I was making myself sick by staying in this place that had no structure, no boundaries, no limits, where I felt like I didn't have any rights. And I had the disease to please other people so badly that I was really utterly exhausted. And then I got a huge wake-up call that basically inspired the most profound pivot point in my life. These 3 little words changed everything. You've got cancer. Now, that created a full stop experience because really, you don't get a cancer diagnosis and just go on getting on the next jet to wherever you're going. Everything came to a crashing halt. I had to figure out what I was going to do. I had to get a second opinion. I had to get surgery. I had to have treatment. And during that time, I really took a long, hard look at my life. And I knew that how I was living needed to change. And I had known it for years. Prior to that, I just didn't know how to do it. I couldn't put my words to what it was that I was feeling. I knew that I wanted more. I knew that I wanted to feel lit up, not trapped in these golden handcuffs of a life, because that's really what it was. So it took big ovaries, but I quit that fancy job that looked 1,000,000% sexier and shinier than it actually was in practice. Even though I knew that really no one in my life would understand why I was doing that, because no one understood what I did or how it really was. My father's direct quote when I told him I was leaving my job running a talent agency to become a therapist was, "Why would you ever do that?" And I was like, 'cause I'm not fulfilled and or happy, and all the money in the world is not making me feel like I thought it would. I was basically chasing a feeling, and I kept thinking that the next client, the next famous person, the next fanciness, whatever we would call it, that was going to create that feeling. By the time I was running an agency, I thought, well, maybe when I left the agency before the one I was running, I thought, well, maybe I just need to be the boss. Like maybe when I get in that position where I'm really running it the way that I want to, and I had all these lofty ideas that I was going to change the entertainment industry, and it wasn't going to be so misogynistic, and we weren't going to call the models girls anymore, quote unquote. I had all these big plans. But ultimately, being there too long, I felt like the industry itself was changing me. And so apparently I wasn't changing my life fast enough for the universe. And I guess the universe was probably tapping me on the shoulder a little too lightly. I didn't notice, so it decided it needed to pick me up and throw me down a flight of cancer stairs. And that really was a wake-up call. And when I looked long and hard and I asked myself if I was living my best life, did I feel fulfilled? Did I feel known? Did I feel inspired? The answer was definitely not. So I quit that job. I doubled up on my therapy and dove into everything self-help, psychology, and I learned everything I could get my hands on about boundaries. And this was a long time ago, folks, so it wasn't like I was Googling that shit. I was in Barnes & Noble sitting on my ass in the very small self-help section. That was decades ago, and it has changed a lot. And there wasn't a ton of stuff on boundaries, but the little bit that I did find was a great start. And then I went to NYU to get my master's and open my therapy practice. So that was really the beginning. I say all of those seeds planted this obsession, I'll call it a healthy obsession, with boundary intelligence and boundary literacy. Nobody was talking about it the way that I knew it needed to be talked about it. I mean, why do I teach this? I have a course coming out right now. It starts next week, the middle of next week, I think. Why do I teach Boundary Bootcamp? Because I know the struggle firsthand. I know you if you're nodding your head and you're like, yes, 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 it's me. Overgiving. I was over-functioning in my relationships. I was, oh my God, so ridiculously codependent. But because I was so high functioning, it was hard to put my finger on that, right? Because it's not the regular kind of codependency, quote unquote, like Melody Beatty, codependent no more, involved with an addict codependency. But it was still codependency. And since then, I've actually created a new terminology, high functioning codependency, because I didn't identify with that original one, but I definitely was suffering from that because I was overly invested in the decisions, the feeling states, right? The actions of the people in my life. I really wanted to control them, even though I was too smart to do it overtly, but I was very crafty trying to do it covertly. But all of that was taking bandwidth. I was really the last on my own list when it came to self-care, saying yes when I wanted to say no, and maybe most embarrassingly, I was a bridesmaid 8 times in my 20s, and at least half of those ugly dress experiences should have been a hard no, because those people, half of them, would not even have been invited to a house party had I had one. Like, no, that wouldn't have happened. But I was so trained, and the thought pattern was so ingrained and so habitual that I thought it would be rude to reject the honor, in air quotes. But of course, then there's me, bitter as hell, in Vegas wearing like a sash that's like, brides, bitches, or whatever you do when you're like the bridesmaids, thinking, why didn't I just say no? Why? What am I doing here? Why am I spending all this money doing crap I don't want to do? Can anybody relate to that bad Vegas experience? I bet you can. So for me, as I continued my growth, I would continue my training through therapy and through courses and through coaching. I was also in the trenches with my therapy clients because I opened up a practice immediately and just started working with, and my clients were all really women who wanted more out of life. So in a lot of ways, they were like me, whether they were whatever they did for a living. I had a lot of actresses, actors, pop stars, because I had been in entertainment. So those were the people who were sending me clients. So I had a lot of industry people. But in the trenches is where I really realized that all of these women had something in common, regardless of socioeconomic status or lifestyle, whether they were CEOs for a Fortune 500 company or a stay-at-home mom. There was not one client whose suffering was not somehow related to lack of boundary knowledge, skills, and effective communication skills. So then I was like, wow, man, I'm really onto something. Let me create something. So I've spent the last 2 decades basically creating strategies that didn't exist, new methodologies based on my own experience and my experience with my clients. And I've empowered already thousands of women all over the world to raise their boundary IQ to really get what you want out of life. And that has to be something that is really personal. Like, it's not just about wanting more, like abundance, although there's nothing wrong with that. What I'm talking about is being more of your authentic or true self. Giving more as a choice, not out of fear of rejection. Living more of a joyous, intentional, mindful life. So the way that I teach women about boundaries is a really holistic, right? The whole entire thing approach, mind, body, because you can't do one without the other. And this is what personal empowerment is made of. It's being how to be fully seen, heard, and most importantly, known in your one and only amazing life. Because if you don't speak up, even just about your preferences, every time you don't, every time you tell yourself, I'm easy, I don't care, I'm no drama, I want to say, are you though? Or are you so habitually used to prioritizing other people over yourself that you just say that, no worries, no problem, I'm easy, and I used to say that all the time when I was in my 20s. But what I really was trying to do is to have there be no conflict. I don't want there to be a problem because that stresses me out. I don't want anyone to be mad because that stresses me out. I'll give up what I want so you can have it if that means you will be happy because your unhappiness stresses me out. So when you learn how to do this and take actual care of yourself, because it isn't noble to be abandoning yourself all the time. It really isn't, because what happens? You know this. I don't need to tell you that when you're giving of yourself in this way, over giving, you don't even have anything to give. You end up being a martyr, feeling like a victim, and you know what? The martyr train only has one stop, and that's called bitter land. It's impossible for it to go anywhere else, because we can only feel unfulfilled for so long without it impacting who we actually become. So if you find yourself turning into your mother and she was a martyr, that could be happening. Now, it's not fatal, and it's not a fait accompli. It doesn't have to happen. But you got to do something different. You got to change something if you want your life to be fulfilling, if you want to be happy, if you want to not be spending your money and your time with people who feel entitled to it, not people you actually want to be with. So much of the time, we're just raised to be compliant. Like, oh, you want me to do this? Okay, sure. Oh, you asked me an intrusive question that is none of your effing business? Wow, I guess I have to answer it. No, you don't. And you can learn to not in a very non-confrontational way. But these are strategies, skills, techniques, and it's basically a language. So if we think about it in that frame, you would not expect to go to sleep tonight and dream hard enough or wish hard enough to wake up fluent in Mandarin tomorrow, would you? No, of course not. You would know you would need training. You need someone who knows how to do it to teach you. That's exactly the same thing with boundaries and effective communication. And when you really do take legitimate good care of yourself, then you can do that for the people in your life. We show up more fully as ourselves, someone who's fun to be around, not angry or like that low grade sort of aggro feeling where you're always aggravated, just waiting for something to happen so you can blow up and sort of let off this steam that is being built up that you don't even know. The unconscious crap that's going on that is building up that steam. Now, you can learn. But, I'm pretty sure your mom didn't teach you that, because mine didn't teach me that. Your job in life, if you want to be happy, just like mine, is becoming the highest version of you, like the best you that you can be. And basically, these are what everyone wants this. We all want this in life. And those are the things that I help women do. So I basically became a boundary boss over 2 decades and got so excited when I decided. I was like, hey, like these women in my practice are so super smart. When I go give talks about boundaries and communication, these women ask the best questions. Like, I literally think I could make a course. I think I could create a course, and in 8 weeks, someone could actually learn how to become a boundary boss instead of doing it over 3 decades of therapy, kind of like I did. I mean, I have no regrets. I love being in therapy, but I'm just saying that's the reality. Now, a lot of therapists don't think that. They wouldn't do that. Maybe I was naive. I don't know. But I believed that what I did in my private practice room with clients, I had faith that it would translate to an online setting with women from all over the world. And, the first time I did it, which was three years ago, I felt like I was probably rolling the dice a bit. And I was like, hey, maybe it's going to be a disaster. We'll see. But I also felt so compelled to reach more women, to reach women who could never afford to see me as a therapist. I don't even do private practice stuff anymore. I'm on retainer with companies and like 1 or 2 private clients, and that's it, right? Because having 40 clients meant I couldn't reach a broader audience. So that's why I started the podcast and started doing all of these other things. And so much of it is for free so that I could reach women in different countries that are even more misogynistic than the US. And there are plenty of them, believe it or not, although this one is still pretty bad. And that's my thing. Like, that's my goal and what I want to do in life. So I created this bomb, amazing course, 8 weeks, 7 modules. And I'm going to give you just an idea of what I teach. How to uncover your particular boundary blocks and overcome them. How to basically uncover your unique boundary blueprint. And that's all the downloaded stuff that happened in our childhood. Who did we learn about boundaries from and communication from? Who do you think? Well, of course, your family of origin. I'm also giving you this method that I created that you can use anytime, anywhere if you're feeling frustrated, confused, or super angry, super fast. This little technique will help you figure out why, like what's actually going on. Because so much of the time, it's not just what it looks like. There's a parallel process going on. And you'll learn all about that in this beautiful little course that I created. I teach you how to communicate effectively, clarity on what is and isn't okay with you. That's one of the first things we do in the course. Because when I would ask women, so how are things at home? They'd be like, okay. I'm like, okay, but specifically, is it actually okay? And when you start looking at your life and all the different areas of your life, how you're communicating with people, the surroundings that you're in, how you're feeling when you're in that situation, how you feel physically, you start to really drill down into what isn't working in your life. And before we can figure out what is working or what will work, we have to know what's not working, right? We also uncover any unresolved childhood or past injuries because they're the things that are hiding in the unconscious mind. Think of them like a bag of shit in your basement, kind of, to be gross, but it's true. And no matter how much you clean the main part of that house, your house is still going to smell funky if you don't figure out what that is. It has to be looked at and honored because that's what's driving the dysfunctional boundary behavior that you might be playing out in your life right now. Because really, as people, what can we do? We can talk things out or act things out. That's it. That's all we can do. I'd be guiding you on to use the most cutting edge psychological methodology to locate your own limiting beliefs, right? And your own personal and natural boundary style. There is absolutely no one size fits all when it comes to boundaries because you're so unique. We deal with the guilt and fear associated with boundaries. You learn how to stop overfunctioning And I really get into teaching you about the high functioning codependency that I told you about before, because that one is very sneaky. I give you the exact worksheet that I use to understand myself and then clean up my own residual crap from past boundary disasters. So basically, I took my own life experience and I was like, well, if I were to teach this to someone else, because I was teaching it to my clients, what if I created an exercise? What would that look like? What if I created a guided meditation so we could hit the main part of the house and the basement, so the conscious and unconscious mind, each week in this course that would add value, that would accelerate the integration. We learn about defense mechanisms and a step-by-step process to end the whole martyr victim syndrome, because that is so unsatisfying. It's like the people-pleasing syndrome we also hit, because that is so unsatisfying. And once you get clear about your old boundary blueprint, and we move into about the 4th week of the course, I teach you exactly how to create your new boundary blueprint. Because so much of the time, we're just doing what someone centuries before us did, right? Visualize this boundary blueprint, kind of like a blueprint for a house that someone else designed. But you have the power to redesign it. And this is all really kind of innovative, psychologically designed stuff from my 2 decades in the trenches. Like, what would make it the most direct route? I never was a therapist who was like, everyone should be in therapy for 440 years. Even though my hero Barbara Streisand has been, and I have been, I don't think it's for everyone. And some people just like being in therapy. I'm one of those people because I'm a therapist. But it's not necessary for most people, honestly, is my feeling. So I also come up with the most important thing, one of the most important things with drawing boundaries successfully, shutting down boundary bullies, and really just making a simple request, is you need words. So what I do in the course is I give you the exact scripts that you can grab, copy, and make them your own. So I'm not saying you have to say these words. I'm saying if you're you need a simple boundary request, a complicated boundary request, if it's a difficult boundary conversation, there's scripts for all of that, because over the years I've just collected what has worked with clients. And I was like, I'm just going to, I kept saying one day I'm going to write a book, and I am actually writing a book right now about boundaries that will be out in 2021. So look for it. Working title, Boundary Boss, right now. So continuing on with the course, because I'm so excited to tell you about what's in it for those of you who are interested. I also have a free workshop, which is called Next Level Boundaries, that is still available. I did it last week, and that is available at terricole.com/workshop. And that's 100% free. The course is not free, but that is free. And I think you will absolutely love it. Moving into one of the last things I teach is how to have a proactive boundary success plan. So this is basically a plan that you lay out before you even go into that conversation. Because it's all about knowing who you're going to be talking to. What is the history between the two of you? That helps you decide, and I guide you to know how to not be provocative, but be successful, right? How to not, use language like you're an idiot, because that doesn't help, even when you feel like saying that. But there's so many more powerful words and phrases that you can use that will usually elicit a much more positive response if being collaborative is what you want to do. And I also teach you how to show up for yourself. Forget the self-abandoning crap by strengthening your internal boundaries. Because when we can't show up for ourselves, when we always say, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, but we never do it, and we actually show up for other people, this is an indication of weak or disordered internal boundaries. And for those of you empaths and you highly sensitive people, I teach you all of these energy techniques to protect your energy and keep it for yourself instead of giving it away. Because in this world with people who have so much aggressive energy, being an empath or a highly sensitive person is a real thing. So you get the education modules, 7 of those, the therapeutic meditation, 7 of those, 7 integration exercises, and then there's 7 Q&A live stream calls, because there has to be a live element to this, because how could it be personalized to you if it wasn't live? Weekly bonus videos. And then I've thrown in 10 real-life boundary story videos where I give you client case studies, personal stories from my life that will help illustrate and support what it is that you're learning. Because some people learn best with stories, We also have access to members-only private community where I personally ask your questions. There's a 14-day money-back guarantee and the most amazing customer support, because Team TC is the absolute best. If you've ever done a course with me, you know that shit is true. Nobody is like Team TC. And if all that sounds like, wow, a lot of value, how much could this course cost? Did I say it has lifetime access? Because it does. And that means you can do it at your own pace. We transcribe everything. So let's say you just want to download it and read it because you don't want to watch a video. You don't have to. I thought of every way. We give you just the audio because maybe you want to listen to it while you're walking. I really try to take all of the guesswork out of doing it, out of doing the course, but also out of getting the most out of the course, because you're all super busy and so am I. So streamline is the way to go. And listen, you guys know this. Nothing in your life changes until you do. And I promise you, I'm not guessing what works. This 5-part framework is tried and true. So think of it like this. I created a methodology and a toolbox, and that's basically what Boundary Bootcamp 2019 is. So if you can read and you can use the tools, because I'll teach you, it's basically everything that you need to make this transformation in your life. All the modules basically build on top of each other. We move from self-awareness to self-knowledge, to self-acceptance, to self-compassion, and ultimately self-love and self-mastery. So, all right, I didn't really mean this necessarily to turn into a total pitch for the course, but I'm super excited about the course. And you can go right now. If the enrollment is open, so if you want to check it out, it's terricole.com/BB2019, BB 2019. And it's the longest sales page in the history of the world, and it's super beautiful. But anything you could possibly need to know is on there if you're interested. All of it, all of the dates. It starts on October 2nd. We're closing the doors on September 30th. I want you to imagine right now, if you woke up 8 weeks from now feeling empowered and confident enough to actually speak your truth easily. What if you could just simply ask for what you wanted? Or say something that you didn't like without skipping a beat? Imagine if you could do all that without confronting anyone, without having it be a dramatic, I have to talk to you conversation. How much might your life change? With less stress, less resentment, and more flow in your daily life. And what about breaking the cycle of misinformation? Right? Let's stop passing this corrupted bullshit down to our children. How about passing down healthy habits and these empowerment skills to future generation? Anyway, I hope this inspired you to do something. I can promise you that Boundary Bootcamp is the most comprehensive training on how to effectively communicate what you want, set limits with others, and deepen your ability to be voluntarily vulnerable, right? Not indiscriminately vulnerable. It's different from other courses because it's based on positive and practical psychology plus mindfulness practices. So honestly, it's the best of East and West because, as I like to say, true transformation and sustainable change, it's really not magic. It's just psychology. So this is without a doubt the training I wish I had in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. It would have saved me tens of thousands of dollars and years of frustration and sickness. That's it. I want that for you. The course costs $797. You can start right now with one payment of $97. It's a 10-month payment plan of $97 a month, or a one-time payment of $797. The course itself comes with unbelievable bonuses, and now I feel like I sound like an infomercial. You get the Boundary Bible, which is the complete guide of all the scripts and everything you could ever possibly need to say. The Hello Goodbye Speed course, so you can stop getting in conversations, relationships, projects with people that you just don't know how to say goodbye to, but you want to. A whole library of quick tip video guides. How to draw boundaries with nosy neighbors, frenemies, blended families, if you're an empath, with an addict, etc. If that's the situation you're in, I got you. And the fourth bonus is the Indecisive No More online course, because so many of you told me that you suffer from this confusion, overthinking, and second guessing every friggin' decision, big or small, and it is maddening. So I'm giving you that course as well. Wow. And if you pay in full, you also get 2 additional Zoom video calls with me for more integration and a huge, it's a bonus bundle of my guided meditations, all of the ones, the different CDs that I have out come as a bonus. So I can't say more about it. You got it. If you're interested, you know where to go. I'll be back next week telling you more about life in general. I want to say thank you for listening, for being here, for caring about your mental health. I really want you to get the skills that you need to create a life that you will really be thrilled by. It's not enough to just get by, right? This is our own one and only time around, this time. And I want you to make the impact, to have the confidence to do what it is you want to do, to pull your own damn chair up to the table. Nobody's going to give us permission to do this. So I want you to continue your inquiry into mental health, boundaries, communication, whether it's with me or with someone else. But don't stop. It is so important that you know that it's possible. And I know it is. I've done it myself and taught thousands of women. You can do it. Don't tell me you don't have time. You can make it work, and I'm making it as affordable as I possibly can. There's no doubt that what I've created is worth thousands of dollars. It is, but I want you to have it, and I want you to have the bonuses because I want you to have the life that you want and that you deserve. That's it. That's my pitch for Boundary Bootcamp. terricole.com/BB2019. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope, ladies, because it's only for ladies, sorry guys, that I see you on the inside. Thank you so much for joining me. And as always, take care of you.